Hi, this is a picture of a campus at Stowe near Milton, Keynes. On the top of the hill you can see like a college, church, chapel, school, and it was a snowy day, and a friend sent this to me yesterday. He went up there for the day with his wife and sent this back, and I'm going to try and do it. It's a very stark grey day, but we'll see what we can make of it. I'll try and explain it as I go. Right, put the computer down out of harm's way. Cover it up. Well, I would cover it up if I had something to cover it up with. Right, okay, stops it getting splashed. Right, I'm using the 2-inch hake, the Ron Ranson hake, and I've got the palette. It looks filthy, doesn't it? But it's okay. Lemon yellow, raw sienna, alizarin crimson, light red, burnt umber, ultramarine, and Payne's grey. The 7 colours that I use was developed by Ron Ranson about 30 years ago, and you don't have to use all of them just because they're there. In fact, there are hundreds of colours made, and you don't have to use them. It doesn't make a painting. You make the painting. And I'm going to wet the paper first, but you'll see I've made some construction marks on here just to show where the building, the college campus building, was. And there are a couple of lakes. There's a big lake here called the Lake, and there's one that connects to divided by road, a little road called the Octagon Lake. I've never been there myself, but this is how we paint from photographs. And the idea is to simplify it. You can't put everything in. Well, you can try, but if you want to make a painting and get it out of the way quick and on the wall, maybe in a frame, you don't want to spend too much time doing it. You want to do a spontaneous painting with as little detail as possible, but capture the important things. Like we've got the snow here, and I've got to leave that light. But because we're painting in wet, I've no way of knowing where the sky's going to end up. But when I do the reflections, this area is going to be quite dark in here, and it's going to outline or form a negative shape with the bank here, with the snowy bank, with some trees coming up here, and trees on this little island here, or whatever's sticking out there. But I'll put some light in the sky. You can see from the photograph that it was a grey day, but if I put in the usual... Oh, sorry, I forgot to wet the paper, so we'll wet the paper first. We'll forget that I put some raw sienna on to begin with. The idea of wetting the paper like this first is that because it's watercolour, if you don't, and you just wet parts of the paper or apply wet washes on the paper, it buckles and it expands all over the place. But if you wet the paper first all over like this, you can reclip it as it expands and that way you can keep the paper quite flat. So I'm going to put in some ultramarine and Payne's grey to give a sort of a cloudy tinge to the sky, but I'm going to keep away from the buildings, but I want to put a bit of dark here to outline the snow, like that. Right, okay, I can let that go. Now while I'm here, I'm going to put that colour, the ultramarine and Payne's grey, in the foreground lake. Just cover it and get it down to where I've made that line showing the bank area. Okay, that will do for the moment. Now when I put the reflections in later, I'll do that when the paper's quite dry, and I'll re-wet it. But there, I've showed the snow, and I've shown the water. And we'll see how that goes. I've not done this before. I haven't even rehearsed it, so I'm as new to it as you are. Right, I'm not going to put the castle in, or castle, not really a castle. It looks like a castle, but I'm not going to put it in yet. I'm going to put the middle distance at the bottom of this hill here. Now, I don't really like that coming down there, so I'm just going to lift that out. Okay, right, I'm covering that up. Right, so I'm going to use a warmish colour. I'm going to use the grey, the Payne's grey, and maybe a bit of ultramarine. Keep all the colours uniform. So far I've only used 1, 2, 3, 4 colours, and maybe I can get away with 4 colours. But I'm going to put this in here. This is the bank area. Right, it's going about there, and that kind of across there. And if I put something below, just to show that reflecting, that bank reflecting, just a little bit underneath. Right, okay. The rest of that's going to be covered up by this island that I'm going to put in here. Right, that's bleeding along there quite nicely. Right, okay. Now I'm just going to reclip it. You can see it's expanding. The paint, if you're looking at this for the first time, or looking at my work for the first time, is Winsor & Newton student quality. It's Cotman, called Cotman. It comes in 21 millilitre tubes. It's very economical. And as you can see, we've squeezed it out onto the palette, onto a small white palette, wall-off white palette, and let it dry overnight. So I've got, in effect, a really big paint box with 7 colours, which suits the size of the hake, the brush that I'm using. A fantastic brush when you get used to it. And when you do get used to it, you won't ever want to go back to anything else. It's a fabulous thing. It does all sorts of wonderful things, like all the trunks and the branches and the foliage. It won't do that fine stuff. I'm going to have to use a different type of brush for that. But now here I'm going to put in the bank of the island. A bit warmer, a bit of raw sienna maybe. That's half with colour. When you brush splits, just work it together again, so that you get a nice chisel edge, or knife edge. Right, we'll just put a bit of sienna and a bit of a lighter colour above, but leaving out some bits to give the impression that there's some snow with some grasses just growing over the top of it. So let's just bring that down. There's a reflection there. Like that. Sorry if I jog the camera. Right. Just make that a bit darker there. And there, I've lost it. Alright, okay. When you paint onto wet paper or wet paint, if you really thicken the mix, it should register a bit better rather than bleed into the surrounding wet paint. Right, okay. Right, while I'm doing that, I think I'm going to just put in this building. And I'm going to use a 1/2 inch flat brush. It's a nylon brush. It's a Daler System 3. Good brushes for using with acrylic paint and for lifting, good for lifting out various areas. I'm going to use a grey, and a standard grey would be light red and ultramarine, maybe a little touch of raw sienna just to give it a warm stone colour. Right, now I'm going to gently touch this in. I'm hoping that this is going to bleed a little bit into the paper where it's still a bit damp, but it might not. But it's only going to be a silhouette. Oops. Now we've got these little towers here. I'm going to put some foliage in here as well. Right, and there's some trees there, and here there's like a tower. Going down. Right, let that go. I'm going to go to the other side now. I've got a bit of a cold, so you have to excuse me if I cough and splutter. Right, I'm using ultramarine and burnt umber for my twiggy trees coming out of this area here. See the hake, if you just touch, just dab, you get this hit and miss affair. It looks very spontaneous, but of course we know it's not. We know we've actually decided to do it like this. But because the brush is fairly dry, it will hit and miss. And I can warm them up a little bit with a bit more of the umber. I'm going to put a lot of branchy stuff in there. As according to now, so I've done the same. I've repeated myself. Guard against that. It's so easy to do regiments. You do one, you get carried away. You think it's that looks nice. I'll do another one of those. Before you know where you are, you've got a line of very similar trees. Right, now because there's no warm in this landscape, in the photograph, I'm just going to add some. Now we've got to remember that this is a snow scene, so a bit of warm scenery bank here. Right, bit of dark in here. So a little bit of shadow, just touch in some grassy areas just to show something sticking up from the snow. Very careful. I'm breaking the bristles up a little bit, so just show some warm grassy stuff. But I'm trying not to overdo this. It's very tempting to justify everything I'm putting in, but a little goes a long way. I can do some little bits with a rigger later. Right, we'll let that go. I'll a bit later when it's dry. I'll put in some shadow here from the trees. See, this is just outlining the bank of snow. Right, okay. Oh, it's good fun, isn't it? Right, okay. I'll just dry off over here. Right, now with those the colours I've used for the trunks, I'm going to put in some of the background. If I do the background trees behind here, the twigs and branches, if I do them on the blue side, it might show that they go go away a little bit. So there was some low down. So this, I hope, will make it appear as if there's some, because it's blue, it'll look as if there's something going on behind. Right, okay. So I've got some blues, they've actually registered. Right, now I'm going to go in with the warm branches and stuff. It was something like this. So you use all the brush. Some coming out here. I'll add some more tweaks to this with the rigger in a minute. And there's quite a lot of dark in there. So I'll use the shortcut, the Payne's grey and the umber. Bits coming out from the tree. Very dry, stippling. Right, okay. Just a few flicks. Right, okay. I'll go over to I'm going to go over to that area now, on the top of the hill. Now the sun's out. I hope it's not going to muck up the light. All right, I'll put some bluey trees there, just to show something on the top of that bank. Warm some up where they go in front of that building. Right. Right, let that go. With a card, I'll just flick in some, show something in front. Right, that'll do. Now I think I can just touch some shrubby stuff on the top of here, just to highlight the bank a little bit. There are some trees coming up from the base of this bank, so right, like that. Okay. Not a lot of detail in that bank, so I'm not going to do anything to it. I have put that slight grey wash over it, and that's very light raw sienna. But there are some trees. Oh, let's just get that bank back in again. Just touch that. Right. Now, it's sticking up here. There were these trees coming up here, about as high as the tower. Alright, there are 3 or 4 of those. Very delicate touch. The rigger makes it look too mechanical if you use it, but you can use what you like. I'm just doing the way I do it. After all, your paint, your brushes, your material, you paint exactly what you like. But if you're a beginner, it's good to follow and copy stuff like this, the stuff that I'm doing. But one of the hardest things to do with painting is to simplify a complicated scene. Like this. You've got to, if you put everything in, if you're not that experienced, it looks very, very amateurish. It's better what you leave out. Don't let the picture do all the talking. Right, I'll do there, what I've done here. Now I'll use this part of the brush, the belly of the brush, with a weak mix of dryish paint, and just get the shape of it. Also, this has an effect of covering up half of that hill, that snowy hill. Right, okay. Good. You see how this area here now is highlighting the snow areas, is providing a contrast. And then I'm going to do some trees in here now, similar to that, but not as heavy. And I'm going to use my burnt umber and my ultramarine. Now we'll just put these in, and they come up fairly high too. Not too many on there. I don't want them to clash too much with that. But since they're slightly nearer, I'm going to have them a little bit warmer. And put some foliage in a minute. And I'll just put enough trees in. I'll reflect all this. Now I've got to keep away from that bit there. I want that to show. So I'm going to put my warmish foliage in. Right, now we have some darker, a warm dark. Oh, excuse me. Right, just touch this here, so there's something going on in this area. Leave some of that. I could even put a bit of green in there, I suppose. A bit of a bit of lemon yellow. Oh dear. I recall this from my grandson. I had a bit of a rotten cold over the weekend. Green there. Well, it had snow up there. We're in London, South London, and we haven't had any snow this week. Right, okay. That's okay. Now, I'm going to clean my brush. And with some nice, I'll dry this around there. So that when I put the wet on, it doesn't pick up the paint from underneath. Whatever you do, don't scrub this and don't go further than the bank. Let's just dry that off. Right, okay. Right, now I'm going to drag in some reflections now. A little bit thicker than the surround, the what's above it, or at least the consistency of it needs to be a bit drier than the wet paper that we're putting it on. Right, okay. We've got the reflections there, so we'll just do a little bit there, just a bit more. Right, okay. Now with the rigger, a bit of dry paint. Just put in these. You can't do them exact. And those ones at the back are a bit bluer. Just get that down further down there. Okay. Now along this bank here was a little fence. Probably stop students from falling in when they've had too much to drink. So I'll put that in. Those in. Oops. What I do, I'll just try. Then my hand can rest on the paper. I'll just break the fence up. Don't show everything. Very impressionist. So don't let the picture do all the talking. If you leave stuff out, but just indicate it, whoever looks at it adds the fence. They fill in the gaps that you leave, and it involves them with the painting. And it's probably why the Impressionists were so popular, because it involved the viewer in doing a bit of work. I'm just going to strengthen up the top of those trees there, because they're a little bit weak. They need to be a bit harder than the one behind. Right, I was going to do a bit of rigor work in there, but I don't think I will. I quite like that as it is. Right, I'm just going to put a bit more of this, some grassy stuff in the foreground on the edge of the bank, just to highlight the bank. So I'm using Payne's grey and lemon yellow. Break the brush up a bit. Just a few. I was going to use, there we go. You can use this instead of using the rigger for doing all the little flicks, little tiny bits of grass. It gives a much more impressionist look and spontaneous look to things. Just some bits and pieces just coming up here and there. Right, I'm not going to do any more to that, except put it in a mount and show you. I'll sign it, but I don't want to go too far with it, because if I do, it'll lose its the speed, the spontaneity. Let's put my little signature in there. The one thing I can do with the thirsty hake, I'll just dry the water out of it, is just to just lift out some of this paint across here. It looks like something's happening on the top of the water. A bit of breeze, something, just to break up the monotony of it. Right, okay, I can't do any more than that. I'm going to put it in amounts now to show you what it would look like if it was framed. So we'll have a look at the picture that I copied it from. Right, where's my... Now, bear with me. Oh, stick it. Right, okay. I'll just stick it in with a bit of masking tape. I'm still here. I haven't gone. Right. Try not to jog the camera. Right, okay. There we are. That's the finished demonstration. You can see the brushwork. There. Very simple. That's what you should aim for. Not my level of ability or lack of, but for yourself. But to do something for yourself, and by simplifying and making what is a complicated scene just a simple statement. It says everything that I want to say. Shows the snow, and it shows the cold of the day, but with a bit of warmth as you come forward. I don't think I can add anything more to that, except say thank you for watching. Copy what I've done and start getting together some reference material. There's plenty of it about. There's loads of it on the web. We can't go to every place we paint. It's obvious we'd need so much money and so much time. It would be impossible. I live as far away from Scotland to paint those Scottish locks and so on, but there's plenty of other ways to get this reference material, but it is important. Start collecting some. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye bye.